Sports presents to you the most unique show in sports.
I'm going to say something now that some may take as a hot take, and I don't really care because I know that I'm right.
A show so staggeringly awesome and unapologetically original, you won't know what hit you.
Do you ever just get down on your knees and thank God that you know me and have access to my dementia?
Featuring the man himself, Nick Costos.
For anyone else who says, oh, he's exaggerating, he's prisoner of the moment. First off, shut up. This is the National Football League. This is not the Big 12. It's not Pop Warner. An absolute disgrace. An atrocity, an affront. One of the most disgraceful performances that I have ever seen in 35 years watching National Football League football.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
What's up, everybody? Happy and merry, magnificent Football Monday to you and yours. This is You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports, as we bring you the fastest show in all of sports. The show presented today and always by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. And on this Monday, the world of sports absolutely buzzing. And we're going to get to all of it, including coaching changes and firings in the National Football League. Moments ago, literally moments ago, ESPN's Adam Schefter tweeting, and I'm not joking, this is literally moments ago, that the Cleveland Browns have fired head coach Kevin Stefanski. So Stefanski going to go to the top of the wish list for a bunch of NFL coaching vacancies. I would love to see my favorite team, the New York Football Giants, hire Kevin Stefanski as its next head coach. So the Browns have just fired Kevin Stefanski. We will get to that as we move along. Not a huge shock that happened, but it has happened. So we will talk about it coming up in a little bit. The Cleveland Browns have fired head coach Kevin Stefanski. We also saw late last night the Atlanta Falcons fire head coach Raheem Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot. It looks like the Falcons will announce the hiring of CBS NFL analyst and former Falcons MVP quarterback Matt Ryan to be the president of football operations. That is not official yet, but is expected to be official per NFL Insider tweets, maybe as soon as today. So we will bring you that news when we get it. We'll break down the Atlanta Falcons' decisions, why I think they made the right call, why I think the Cleveland Browns probably made the wrong call with Stefanski, but at least I understand it. And any other breaking coaching news here on Black Monday in the NFL, we will break it down in full detail here on You Better You Bet. I will also tell you, dear listener, and you, dear viewer, with the playoff picture set in the National Football League, why there is zero excuse for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to not make it to Super Bowl 60, and the consequences the Bills must face if they don't at least win the AFC. There is a coaching change that I don't expect to be made in the National Football League, and I absolutely think it should, and I think that the team is crying out for it to be made. I'll tell you about that in a couple hours here on You Better You Bet. I'm also going to give you my early thoughts for Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. We've got betting markets at BetMGM, and I've got thoughts on a bunch of these games. And we will close the show in the final hour, the Power Hour, with all my bets for tonight in the world of sports. We'll do a little NBA and a little college hoops and a little college football at the very end of the show. Got a couple games I like tonight in the association. Just to reiterate the breaking news that came down a few minutes ago, the Cleveland Browns have fired head coach Kevin Stefanski, and reportedly, general manager Andrew Berry will stay on in Cleveland. I actually don't have any beef with that for Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But we officially begin the magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports with this.
He now has a chance to win the division for the Ravens. The final play of the regular season for the final spot in the playoffs. Tyler Luke from 44. Snap good. Hold it. The kick is good! It is wide right! And the Steelers are the champions of the North!
Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth with the call last night on NBC. Honestly, in the moment, and we'll do this more later in the show, like we are going to talk about this in detail later in the show. I think last night was the best called game by a play-by-play announcer and a color commentator since the 2018 AFC Championship game, Tony Romo's first year at CBS, Nance and Romo on the call of the Patriots and the Chiefs at Arrowhead, with the Patriots winning that game in overtime. That's how good I think this was last night from Tirico and Collinsworth, absolutely at the top of their games. Again, we will delve into that in detail a little later in the show. Or I want to start the first thing off of this game last night, and I'll preface it by saying, I have thought about it. I thought about it literally in the moment last night, and it's the first thing I thought about when I woke up this morning. Don't tell my wife. This is not hyperbole. It is not an exaggeration. And I, Nick Costos, am not being a prisoner of the moment. And if I were, I would tell you, and I would admit it, that I'm getting swept up in the moment. I have no problem saying that. This is not that. Last night, Steelers beating the Baltimore Ravens 26-24 to win the AFC North in the fashion that it happened. This is one of the best and most dramatic regular season NFL games of all time. Of all time. When you consider the stakes, the teams, the legendary quarterbacks, the legendary coaches, arguably the best rivalry in the NFL with the Ravens and the Steelers, and the setting in primetime in Pittsburgh. Chef's kiss, absolute perfection. I have been watching the NFL on an obsessive basis for 36 years. Obsessively for 36 years. And this is a game that will absolutely stand the test of time, and one that we will be talking about for years and decades to come. That is how good this was last night as the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens. And as far as the game itself goes, we don't need to belabor this point at all. The Baltimore Ravens need to fire John Harbaugh, and they need to fire John Harbaugh now. You can't fire him last night after the game. He's won a Super Bowl, obviously. You got to show him the proper respect, and I mean that sincerely. But we don't have to play games here. This doesn't have to be a dragged-out process. He needs to go, full stop, and that is not an overreaction. That is only reaction. Not overreaction, only reaction. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you absolutely cannot lose this game that they lost last night to the DK Metcalf-less Pittsburgh Steelers and waste an MVP caliber performance from Lamar Jackson. And there were questions coming into the game, like how's Lamar going to look? No one knew. He's been so up and down this season, has dealt with multiple injuries, finally got a full week of practice in, but no one knew how this was going to go for Lamar Jackson. And then the game starts, and it goes on into the second half, and he is outrageously good. And in the list of reasons, on the pie chart of reasons why the Baltimore Ravens lost this game, Lamar Jackson is the least of the problems last night for the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to play for you the second Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers touchdown here. And I'm going to tell why this is one of the best plays I've seen for a long time in the National Football League.
3rd and 1. Fake to Henrik Jackson. Shot downfield. Zay Flowers again. Zay Flowers inside the 20. He's going to go.
Unbelievable. And by the way, Chris Collinsworth takes a lot of flack from people. That call is a 10 out of 10. And Mike Tirico is a 10 out of 10. To say in the moment, they've got him again, and like you're watching on TV, you can't see that Zay Flowers is wide open. But you know in that moment, like something has happened down the field. And then you see it with the ball in the air. That is so good. And Lamar Jackson was so good. The way he was able to step through those two defenders, like he's going to get sacked on either side, and he slips through and is able to make that throw down the field, look like Jet Li in a 2000 action movie. Like it was preposterous. He looked like a shinobi. He looked like a ninja. How was he able to do that? Superhuman stuff from Lamar Jackson. And it's all for naught. They lose the game anyway. Absolutely unacceptable. And this game turned. And this is an indictment on the coaches, and it's also an indictment on the front office for the Baltimore Ravens. This game last night turned when Kyle Hamilton got concussed at the beginning of the second half by his own teammate, Alohi Gilman, as it's like one of these quick Aaron Rodgers, like, I need to get rid of the ball or I'm going to get killed. So I'm going to throw a hospital ball and put people in harm's way. And Gilman and Kyle Hamilton go helmet to helmet, and Hamilton takes the worst of it. Gilman's able to come back into the game, but Kyle Hamilton is not. And at that point in the game, the Ravens lead 10-3. And from there, the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to turn it all around. And I know Chris Collinsworth is saying, and I'm not saying Collinsworth is wrong, that Kyle Hamilton is the heart and soul of the Ravens defense. And that without Hamilton as the movable chess piece, that the Ravens defense like kind of ceases to become what it can be in its best and final form. Here's my reaction to that. You can't have it as an organization and a coaching staff. And this is not to diminish the greatness of Kyle Hamilton. He is a spectacular player. You can't have it where if a safety has to, it's not Myles Garrett has to leave the game, or TJ Watt has to leave the game, or Micah Parsons has to leave the game. Or Aaron Donald has to leave the game, or Lawrence Taylor has to leave the game. Let's call it like it is. You cannot have it that if a safety has to leave the game, your defense absolutely folds like a cheap suit against the Steelers' defense offense that has zero juice without DK Metcalf. What a stinging indictment this is on Harbaugh, on general manager Eric DeCosta, and on defensive coordinator Zach Orr. Do you think the Ravens, I've been saying this how many times now for how many years now on this show? Do you think the Ravens wish they still had Mike Macdonald on the coaching staff as the head coach? Could you imagine that? Kyle Hamilton gets hurt, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense without DK Metcalf turns into the greatest show on turf St. Louis Rams. And you can't keep them off the scoreboard after that because a safety had to leave the game. And again, Kyle Hamilton is magnificent, but you absolutely cannot have this. And when it's all said and done, and when the Ravens, and I think they will do it, when they move on from John Harbaugh, keeping John Harbaugh over Mike Macdonald is going to be like the Eagles drafting Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. And that sounds like a huge insult to John Harbaugh, and I understand how that comes across because he's won a Super Bowl and he's been a great coach, but come on. Come on. A year of Lamar Jackson's prime. Wasted. And I know that he misses time this season. But look at San Francisco with all the time that Brock Purdy missed and other principal players missed. They played for the 1 seed this weekend. The Ravens finished below 500. There's no excuse for this. Zero excuse. And I'm not here for anyone that wants to make the excuses. And we haven't even gotten to the most unforgivable sin committed by John Harbaugh last night. And to talk about that, we have to talk about the team's rookie place kicker, Tyler Loop. And look, I feel bad for the kid. 24 years old, rookie out of Arizona. Was nails for most of the season, replacing one of the best kickers of all time. And you can say whatever you want about him off the field, and I'm sure it's all merited. But on the field, one of the best kickers ever, if not the best kicker ever, in Justin Tucker. After the first Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers touchdown pass, after the first one, Tyler Loop booms the kickoff out of bounds. And my antenna starts to go up a little bit. That's interesting. That's a huge mistake in that spot by a rookie kicker on the road with the stakes exceptionally high. The antenna go up. Then when the Steelers scored to take the lead at the end of the game with less than a minute to play, Chris Boswell, who might be, he's one of, the best kickers in the NFL, shanks the extra point. Misses the extra point, and it's 26-24. And now Baltimore can win with the field goal. And you get on the final drive, you get Lamar Jackson magic. On the 4th and 7, the miracle conversion to Isaiah Likely. And in that moment, we're all thinking, right? Ravens just won the game with that pass to Isaiah Likely. They call a timeout at the 24-yard line, right? A 41-yard field goal on the way. Baltimore has another timeout and time to run another play and then call that last timeout and then kick the field goal to get closer for their rookie kicker, who has just in this quarter, in the fourth quarter, boomed to kick off out of bounds, and you just watch Chris Boswell shank an extra point at the stadium and the field that everyone says is the hardest for a kicker to kick it in the National Football League. And instead of getting it closer for your rookie kicker, you have Lamar Jackson walk backwards 3 yards and take a knee, and then call your timeout to get it in position for Tyler Loop. This was a first guess by me. I'm watching this thinking, did they really just do that? Like, make it a longer kick for Tyler Loop? And this ain't the Big 12. It ain't Arizona. They're not playing in a dome. They're not playing some curtain-jerking jabroni team. This is the AFC North title game in primetime with the world watching in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. You want to talk about pressure. That is pressure. And you had an opportunity to make it a more makeable and manageable kick for your 24-year-old rookie kicker who's replacing Justin Tucker, and you decided to make it more difficult, even if it's only a couple yards. These are the kinds of things that happen when in the moment you're saying to yourself, if you know ball, you're saying to yourself, no way. This can't be the decision that you make. And Loop Vanderjats it. Like, kicks it, and as soon as it's off his foot, you know it's going wide right. That's a Mike Vanderjagt-style miss. Not even close. And the Ravens lose. Season over. And the Steelers win the AFC North. Isn't it poetic that the Baltimore Ravens season began with an unbelievably mind-numbing and soul-crushing Sunday Night Football loss? That one to the Buffalo Bills. And it ends in Week 18 with a mind-numbing, soul-crushing Sunday Night Football loss, this time to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now, we'll see. I think the Ravens will fire John Harbaugh. Let's say they don't. We will be set to enter year 9 of the Harbaugh-Lamar Jackson partnership, where Lamar Jackson has won more Most Valuable Player awards than the Ravens have reached conference championship games. Ravens haven't been to a Super Bowl yet with Lamar Jackson. Year 9. John Harbaugh got handed a Ferrari and is driving 40 in the right lane with it. You can't have it. The expiration date has been reached. You take a swig of milk. It's sour. You look at it. That son of a bitch expired in 2022. That's John Harbaugh with the Ravens. You give him his Rolex. Thanks for the Super Bowl. You send him on his way. Absolutely unforgivable for the Ravens in a year of Lamar Jackson's prime to not make the postseason. Oh, baby. We haven't even kicked into full gear yet here on this magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet. We will get into the Browns firing Kevin Stefanski, happening about 20 minutes ago in real time. The Atlanta Falcons moving on from Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. All the early thoughts on Wild Card Weekend and the National Football League as well. But on the other side, the Pittsburgh Steelers survive in advance. Aaron Rodgers' career lasts at least one more game. And I'll tell you the team that was happiest for Pittsburgh's win outside of Pittsburgh. All coming up next here on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Rodgers protected. Throws to Austin for the touchdown!
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth last night. Can't say it enough. I think that is the best call of an NFL game since Nance and Romo 2018 AFC Championship game, Patriots and Chiefs, which was the Tony Romo's literally going to predict every play before it happens game. Like, oh, Patriots in overtime going from left to right on your television screen. Julian Edelman's gonna run this route and drop right here, and Brady's going to find him down the field for 12 yards. Here we go. There it is. Next play. Well, here's what Rob Gronkowski's going to do. Just watch here as he peels off the linebacker. Boom. Exactly what happens. I remember watching that game and thinking, it's the best broadcast I've ever seen. And then I watched last night. And that might have taken the cake with Tirico and Collinsworth. It's Tirico on the call of the Rodgers touchdown pass to Calvin Austin, the go-ahead touchdown pass to Calvin Austin, as Chidobe Awuzie slips and falls, and Calvin Austin waltzes into the end zone. I'm going to be real with everybody. I always am on the show with you, our listeners, and you, our viewers. I cannot believe the Pittsburgh Steelers won this game. And I'm not trying to be a hater at all. I even said over the course of the week, like, if the point spread's going to be 3.5 or 4, like, I think Baltimore is going to win. I never said I thought Pittsburgh was going to win. But now you're going to lay 4 with the Ravens? They need to win by 6 or 7 with how they have looked generally this season? So I'm not surprised the game was close. I am stunned that the Pittsburgh Steelers won. And when Lamar on the opening drive of the game hits Tez Walker to put the Ravens up 7-0, the Ravens score a touchdown, I text the You Better You Bet group chat and various other group chats I'm in, talking sports with friends, of which there are many, and I declare, game over. Flip, flip, flip. Game over. No DK Metcalf. How are they coming back? Forget the fact that there's like 55 minutes to go in the game. I declared it over. Like Tom Wamsgan in Succession calling the election after like one district reports. I thought it was done with the Ravens up 7-0. And to be clear, and I said this in the opening segment as well, this game was over until the Kyle Hamilton injury at the beginning of the second half. Aaron Rodgers should be sending Alohi Gilman a fruit basket today for going helmet to helmet, accidentally, obviously, with his own teammate, his battery mate at safety, and concussing Kyle Hamilton and knocking him out of the game. Like, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem like the type that sends Christmas cards. For various reasons. But if he were, man, Alohi Gilman needs to get one coming up this December. Because the first 30 minutes of the game, the first half of the game for Aaron Rodgers, he looked like his former mentor, Brett Favre. And I'm using mentor loosely there. I don't know if they really liked each other, but the guy that played ahead of him. He looked like Brett Favre in 2010, not 2009 when the Vikings went to the NFC Championship game. In 2010, outside, in the cold, in Chicago, getting flattened by Corey Wooten and laying there in a crumpled heap. When I remember watching that guy, I'm thinking, he going to get up? Aaron Rodgers, in the first half of last night's game, looked slow. He looked old. He looked cold. And he looked terrible in what could have been his final game in a legendary first ballot Hall of Fame career. And then Kyle Hamilton gets hurt. And Aaron Rodgers decides to party like it's 2011. And his MVP season when the Packers go 15-1 and lose to my Giants in the divisional rounds. And the Giants would go on to win the Super Bowl. Sorry, I'm a Giants fan. I felt like I had to say that. Once Kyle Hamilton goes out, think about how bad the Steelers' offense was in the first half. They looked like they had no hope. Zero hope. And just consider, by the way, it wasn't just Rodgers and like his physical traits leaving him in these moments. It wasn't just that. It looked like mentally he was like not losing it in the way like Grandpa loses it, but losing it mentally as well. where down on the goal line on the final play of the first half, and I agree with the decision of Mike Tomlin to go for the touchdown, like after the pass interference call and eschewing the short field goal attempt to make it 10-6. I agree with the decision to go for the touchdown. Aaron Rodgers is in control of that offense. Like Arthur Smith can call whatever play he wants, and then Aaron Rodgers will rub his belly or scratch his head or scratch his armpit or whatever he does, grab his junk, and change the play if he feels like it's not going to work. Aaron Rodgers ran a terrible play that was doomed from the start, and Kenny Gainwell doesn't even come close to the end zone. So this wasn't just Rodgers missing Jonnu Smith wide open, or Rodgers deciding not to run for a first down that I actually think he could have made even at 42. But it was Rodgers mentally also not getting the job done. And then Hamilton leaves the game, and it all turns from there. The game was over, and then it wasn't. And Rodgers took advantage, to his credit. It's like, you're competing for a girl with another guy, and she likes him more. But he gets drunk and sends her 20 text messages in a row. And now she likes you more. And now it's up to you to take advantage. An opportunity that you didn't foresee, and here it is right in front of you. And Aaron Rodgers took advantage. And in doing so, probably, and we'll see how it goes against the Houston Texans on Monday night. No easy shakes there, the Houston Texans defense. But if Rodgers goes out like that, like let's say they score 10 points in the game, Hamilton never leaves the game, the Steelers don't do anything, and Pittsburgh loses, which they absolutely would have. 100% they lose that game if Hamilton doesn't get hurt. 100% with the way that Lamar Jackson played. Think about the conversation this morning. Rodgers is done. He's washed. It's over. Time to retire. And think about the conversation instead. You bet on this magnificent Football Monday. Nick Costos here with you. Westwood One Sports presented by BetMGM. Find the show in podcast form. Search You Bet wherever you find your podcasts. Watch us on YouTube. We'll be taking some YouTube comments later this hour and over the course of the show today. And the truly stunning thing about this Steelers second half offensive explosion, where they go after the Hamilton injury, touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown, with no DK Metcalf. Again, touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown. Insane. Is that Rodgers managed to do this, and the Steelers managed to do this on offense, not with Hines Ward and Santonio Holmes and Antoine Randall or Antonio Brown. No. They did it with Adam Thielen. They did it with Pat Freiermuth. And they did it with Calvin Austin. What? Adam Thielen. What? Marquez Valdez-Scantling. What? Jonnu Smith. What? Connor Hayward. What? Calvin Austin. What? Austin 316 says, I just sent your ass home. Absolutely unbelievable. And TJ Watt being back didn't hurt for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Watt making a couple big plays in the game, including a crazy interception that felt like the teams were playing hot potato with the football, bouncing off a couple appendages before TJ Watt intercepts that ball. And we also need to shine the spotlight and give a ton of credit to Cam Hayward, who was just superb last night for the Steelers. The future Hall of Fame defensive lineman, and I'll say he's going to the Hall of Fame, Cam Hayward. And his brother Connor scored a touchdown, and we had the tush-push fiasco with him at the start of the game. Bad call by Arthur Smith. But the Hayward brothers coming to play in the game. Cam Hayward was awesome. And think about this juicy bit of, I was going to say irony. I don't think that's the right word. Maybe I guess it is a little ironic. Don't you think? In training camp, Cam Hayward is furious about his contract. Remember this? It's not that long ago. And I don't think he outright said, I'm not going to play. But he's skipping training camp practices. Maybe he's going to hold out. And it felt like in that moment, and this was only a couple months ago, I'm not making any of this up, that the Steelers fan base was kind of turning on him a little bit. You just signed this new deal recently, and now you want more money? ahead of a season where we pushed all our chips into the middle. We're going all in, and this is what you're doing? And now, here we are. Making tremendously impactful plays as the Steelers win the AFC North in game 272 out of 272 to send the Baltimore Ravens home. It's one of the best NFL games in the last 50 years, certainly since I've been watching, and it will stand the test of time. As Metallica would say, dun 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 dun, time marches on. For whom the bell tolls. Maybe my favorite Metallica song. All right. Let's spin this forward now. Let's talk about the AFC playoff picture as it concerns the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. One of the reasons out of many why it is so unforgivable that the Ravens lost this game and did not make the postseason is that you, realistically, you the listener, you the viewer, you could have realistically made the case. Now, I don't think it would have gone this way, but I wouldn't have stopped you from making the case. It's not crazy to say. Like, I think it would be crazy to insinuate that the Chargers could make a Super Bowl run with the offensive line being in the shape it's in. I think that would be crazy. I don't think it would have been crazy to say that if Tyler Lute makes that kick and the Ravens win 27-26, that you could have made a case that the Ravens could have made a run to the Super Bowl. I don't think it would have happened, but you could have made that case, right? Given the way Lamar Jackson played last night, played at an MVP caliber level, and maybe Kyle Hamilton's back from the concussion for next Monday night against the Houston Texans. We'll never know at this point now. So the Ravens, if they had made the tournament, you could have said, this team has the upside to win the American Football Conference. I'm not being a hater when I say this. You cannot make that case for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, you can't. You can't. And I'm not saying the Steelers can't beat. I'll give you my early betting thoughts, which is, and I'll even say it now. If the point spread's going to be 3.5, I'm betting Pittsburgh. Like against the Texans offense, Pittsburgh plus 3.5 at home? No way. So I'm going to like the Steelers to at least cover the spread in the game. Pittsburgh can't make the Super Bowl. They can't. They don't have the upside that the Ravens do. Like, they just don't. And remember what I said at the end of the week, and I'm consistent here, right? The Steelers have a higher floor than Baltimore, but the Ravens have a higher ceiling. The Ravens' ceiling was to potentially win the AFC. The floor was to also not make the playoffs. The Steelers made the playoffs and finished above 500 again. The ceiling, though, is probably divisional round loss against whomever the opponent would end up being. So the team that I think, and the fan base that I think, was rooting just as hard, if not harder, and I'm being facetious when I say that. Obviously, Steelers fans were rooting the hardest. But the fan base that was most rooting for the Steelers, outside of the Steelers fans, the Houston Texans. And that's not to insinuate that the Ravens would have definitely beaten Houston. Point spread would have been like Ravens minus 1.5, right? Ravens minus 1. But now, the Texans go from being a road dog in the first round of the playoffs next Monday night to being like a 3 or a 3.5 point road favorite. This is a massive, massive deal for the Houston Texans. And I'm not saying they're definitely going to beat Pittsburgh, but if you're Houston, you have a Texans ticket on them to make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, you grew up rooting for this team, whatever. This is your outcome. This is what you came for. Lightning strikes when you take the room. And everybody's watching her, but she's looking at you. Shout out to Rihanna. This is what you wanted if you're a Texans fan or a Texans bettor. You go from being a dog to being a road favorite. And and you know the Texans are going to be a chic pick to win this game. Now, betting-wise, I'm going to like the Pittsburgh Steelers to cover the spread. I would not be shocked if the Texans won. This was a great, great, great result for the Texans. And I would imagine Texans fans like cheering for the Tyler Loop miss, like citizens of Earth cheered when the humans beat the aliens on Independence Day. Just a stunning, stunning result in turn of events for the Houston Texans after their 0-3 start to 12-5 in the regular season and now favored on the road in Wild Card Weekend. And speaking of Wild Card Weekend in the AFC. On the other side, we are going to talk about the team in the AFC, the one team above all others that has no excuse to not make the Super Bowl. That team, of course, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and the consequence that the Bills must face if they don't get to Super Bowl 60. Plus betting thoughts in the AFC on Wild Card Weekend as the magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet rolls on. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Steps up. He's got room in front of him. Pulls the trigger. End zone. Touchdown. A bullet. Josh Allen to Dawson Knox.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Ian Eagle with the call recently on CBS. We didn't really want to play you here's Mitch Trubisky to Ray Davis, touchdown from yesterday. So Ian Eagle with a recent Josh Allen, a touchdown, a pass. We'll talk about the Buffalo Bills and the wide open AFC in a moment, but first we got to tell you about our show sponsor at BetMGM, because today, what a lucky day. BetMGM account holders will receive an Any Sport Parlay Boost token. Score a bigger payout if your wager with the Parlay Boost token hits. Tokens can be used on parlays and same-game parlays. I'll give you a parlay at the end of the show for tonight in the NBA. I've got one for college basketball that I like as well. Not that they're guaranteed to win, but I'll be placing these bets with my own money, and why not boost it? A Parlay Boost token courtesy of BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app. Visit BetMGM.com and make it legendary. We will start next hour here on this magnificent Football Monday with the Atlanta Falcons firing of head coach Raheem Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot, and the Cleveland Browns firing of Kevin Stefanski. And any other coaching news that we get over the course of the morning, we will bring to you live as it happens here on You Better You Bet. 2 coaches have been fired since the conclusion of their games in Week 18. Raheem Morris of Atlanta, Kevin Stefanski of Cleveland. Breakdown coming up next hour. Want to get to some comments from the YouTube chat, and then we'll talk the Bills. How about our friend AMW0720? Beautiful day to be a Steelers fan. Hashtag Tomlin still out. AMW, can we at least wait until next Monday night and see how it goes? How about our friend Wizard of Raz, who says Lamar had some great plays, but he was not MVP caliber? Okay, Raz, I appreciate the comment. Thank you very much for watching. I totally disagree. I thought Lamar was great. And our friend Sports Wager says Lamar should dip out of Baltimore today. They're going to fire John Harbaugh. He's not going to have to dip out. That's my prediction. We'll see what happens. As I've said throughout the first week here on Westwood One Sports, way more interactivity coming on YouTube. We will have a text line and a phone line that we will roll out probably this week and into next week. So thank you very much to everybody checking out the show. If you'd like to get involved and hashtag join the conversation, the YouTube chat, the Twitch chat, your best bets for right now, text line and call line, maybe this week, certainly next week here on Westwood One Sports. The AFC playoff picture is set, as is the NFC, obviously. And this is the most open I can remember a conference being, this year's American Football Conference. No Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow. Compare and contrast, just for the sake of conversation and for the sake of context, to like last year's AFC playoff field, where it's going to be one of 3 teams. And really, it was going to be one of 2. Maybe you liked Baltimore. It was going to be Kansas City, it was going to be Buffalo, or it was going to be Baltimore. Hell, even last year in the NFC, it felt like it was one of the top 2 seeds. It was going to be Detroit or Philadelphia, and it ended up being the Eagles. We usually don't get a playoff field where you can make an actual, real, legitimate case for more than 2 or 3 teams. Now, look, you can just go and say whatever you want and be like, yeah, I think the Chargers are going to make it. But again, we're sponsored by BetMGM. I would always ask people this question. If you had to bet on it, would you? I think the answer would probably be no. I see in this year's AFC playoffs only 2 teams out of 7 that I think can't make the Super Bowl. I would never consider betting them. The 7-seed LA Chargers, which is the offensive line issues. I don't think they'll be able to get there. Too many injuries on the offensive line. And the 4-seed, the AFC North champion, Pittsburgh Steelers, who ultimately, in my estimation, don't have enough offense to get them over the hump. And I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm calling it like I see it. Pittsburgh and the Chargers are the only 2 teams in the AFC that I will say right now cannot make it. Houston, Buffalo, Jacksonville, New England, and Denver, the 1 seed with home field advantage, the Denver Broncos, could all feasibly make it. And think about those teams. C.J. Stroud in Houston. Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Drake May and the New England Patriots, and I know May maybe will be MVP. We'll see. Looks like it's Stafford at this point. We'll see. First year in the playoffs. And Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. There is zero excuse. None. For the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen and Sean McDermott to not make Super Bowl 60. This is the 1990s Green Bay Packers, who couldn't beat the Dallas Cowboys and Troy Aikman with Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren. And then it took the Carolina Panthers in year 2 with Kerry Collins and Dom Capers upsetting Dallas for the Packers to beat the Panthers in the NFC Championship game and beat Bill Parcells, Drew Bledsoe, and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 31. This is every Ben Roethlisberger Steelers team. They could never beat New England. And in 2005, when Roethlisberger and Bill Cowher won, the Patriots got bounced by the Broncos in Denver. In 2008, when the Steelers won, Tom Brady tears his ACL in week 1. And in 2010, when the Steelers make it and lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, that is the Bart Scott, Rex Ryan, Sean Green, Mark Sanchez, can't wait New York Jets beating MVP Tom Brady and the 14-2 Patriots in Foxborough. There's no Lamar Jackson. Not that the Bills couldn't beat Lamar, but Lamar's not in it. There's no Joe Burrow, who's beaten the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen in the playoffs. And most importantly, there's no Patrick Mahomes. The boogeyman's not there. The final boss isn't there. This is like playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and you don't have to beat Mike Tyson at the end to win the game, to win the AFC. You got to take down Soda Popinski, and you make the Super Bowl. You get to play Mario, and you don't have to beat Bowser at the end of the game to win the game. You got to beat like Lenny Koopa, like one of his illegitimate kids. That's how this goes. Zero excuse for the Bills to not make it. And if they don't, remember what I said about the Ravens. Year 9, if they keep Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, no Super Bowl. Didn't even make it. Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, and the Bills are on the same timeline. Same draft, same coaches. If the Bills can't make it this year in this AFC, they need to fire Sean McDermott and try something different, because it ain't never going to happen if it doesn't happen this year. And as for the bets for this weekend, we'll do way more on this over the course of the week. The Steelers at 3.5 or 4 as a home dog are the easiest bet on the board. Easiest. I'll tell you what, I'm definitely betting the Chargers on Sunday night, not to win, but to cover in New England. If that's going to be 3.5 or 4, Patriots defense is terrible. And Justin Herbert had a week off. And as for Bills-Jaguars, Buffalo a 1-point road favorite. Here's what I can promise everyone. The Bills are going to get bet out as the week moves along. Betting market loves the Bills, and we can make our decision on Bills-Jaguars later in the week. Hour 1 done. Hour 2 for you coming up on the other side. We will start hour number 2 with the coaching news in the NFL. Raheem Morris out in Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski out in Cleveland.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
The biggest names in the business are on You Better You Bet with Nick Costos.
Hey, this is Joe Buck, and you have done it. You have found it. You are listening to You Better You Bet. Great decision.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan of CBS, Westwood One, and TNT, and I'm listening as you do every day to You Better You Bet with the most handsome single man in the radio business. A man who, if I was not married for 38 years, I might consider myself the kind of guy that can electrify a listening audience and a crowd of bystanders watching him do what he does so well each and every day. Continue to listen right here on You Better You Bet.
This is You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Brought to you by BetMGM.
The magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet rolls on. Nick Costos and you on Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM. First hour of the show dedicated largely to the Steelers' heart-stomping 26-24 win Sunday Night Football over the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh wins the AFC North. The Ravens go home. And I told you why. I think the Ravens need to move on from head coach John Harbaugh and run it back with Lamar Jackson and company next year with a different head coach. We talked about how the Kyle Hamilton concussion changed everything in the game, and Aaron Rodgers was able to rewrite the narrative in a stellar second half for him. Also explained that I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers can make a Super Bowl run, and that there is no excuse this year for the Buffalo Bills to not at least win the AFC. Coming up later this hour, we will talk about the NFC. And I'm going to tell you the two teams that I think fared the best. And they're not going to be the teams you're expecting in the NFC after the events of Week 18. Very much look forward to that. But we have a lot of coaching news that's already transpired. And we just got a piece of coaching news. The Cincinnati Bengals will retain Zach Taylor. So Zach Taylor will not lose his job. Zach Taylor will come back as head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. And we have a quote from Bengals owner and team president Mike Brown. It's very long. I'm not going to read. It's like 4 paragraphs. I'm not reading the whole thing. TLDR. Too long, didn't read. The Bengals will be keeping head coach Zach Taylor and de facto general manager, director of player pro personnel, Duke Tobin. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on that coming up in a few moments. The Bengals keeping Zach Taylor. Let's talk about the 2 firings that have transpired. And first, the Atlanta Falcons, who beat the New Orleans Saints yesterday, 19-17, and in doing so, win the NFC South for the Carolina Panthers. And after the game, Falcons head coach Raheem Morris, who ended the season on a 4-game winning streak, had this to say.
Both defenses came to play today. They came with the right mindset. Those guys come with the right mindset. They came down and really buckled down on our run, and our guys did the same. We really go out there and play some hard-fought football, and we prepared to fight all day, no matter how long it took. Our job is winning, and the guys went out and did it.
Well, unfortunately for Raheem Morris, they did not win enough in 2 seasons with him on the job. As after the game last night, the Atlanta Falcons, owner Arthur Blank and company, fire Raheem Morris and fire general manager Terry Fontenot. For a team in the Atlanta Falcons that generally always gets it wrong. Usually they don't get it right. They screw up in the big spot. They make the wrong hire. Have largely been, with periods of success obviously mixed in, have largely been a laughing stock. Whether it's Super Bowl 51, 28-3, whether it's on the eve of the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos after upsetting the mighty Minnesota Vikings. Here's Eugene Robinson. And you can Google that if you want, if you're too young to remember that. Arthur Smith, Desmond Ridder, even the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. debacle. Giving Kirk Cousins $100 million and then drafting Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick in the draft, which made absolutely no sense. For a team that usually gets it wrong, we got to give the Atlanta Falcons credit. The Falcons yesterday, January 4th, year of our Lord, 2026, got it right in every conceivable way. First, beating their hated rival. And it really is a shame that the Falcons and Saints are both not like perennially good, because this is actually like Steelers-Ravens is probably the best rivalry in the NFL. The Falcons and Saints fans hate each other. This rivalry rules. And when both teams are good, it's as good as it gets. So you had Atlanta ending the season on a 4-game win streak and ending the 4-game win streak of Tyler Shuck, Kellen Moore, and the New Orleans Saints. So they beat their rival in the final game of the season. And in doing so, they are able to knock the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off their perch as the leaders of the NFC South and hand the division to Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. That's all good stuff for Atlanta. Can't say anything bad about it. And then, the cherry on top of the delicious sundae. And I hate to put it like this because people are losing their jobs. They're rich. And listen, it's our job to do this. And I've said this a couple times over the course of the last couple weeks. I'll keep saying it because I have dealt with him over the course of my career. Raheem Morris is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet in life. Like, not just in sports. These are good people. I don't know Terry Fontenot. I'm going to assume he's a good guy. Raheem Morris is a good guy. Anyone will tell you that. They both needed to go. This is an absolute no-brainer for the Atlanta Falcons to make these moves. Raheem Morris is a terrific defensive coordinator. My guess is he lands in Washington with Dan Quinn. Or if Chris Shula for the Rams gets a head coaching job, the DC there, that he'll go back and be the defensive coordinator of the Rams, which he was when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago over Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to get another job. He's just not a head coach. And I don't even really mean that as an insult. It's like Robert Saleh, great defensive coordinator, probably not a head coach. Vic Fangio, great defensive coordinator, not a head coach. And that's Raheem Morris. Dennis Allen, awesome defensive coordinator, not a good head coach. And we could do this on the offensive side of the ball as well. So I'm not saying Raheem can't coach or he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a good head coach. And I think the proof is in the pudding. And Terry Fontenot needed to go years ago for Atlanta. And I've been saying this now for years. 37-48 in 5 seasons with the Falcons. 0 winning seasons. 0 playoff appearances. And oversaw the Cousins-Penix debacle. Where, again, you pay a quarterback $100 million and then draft a quarterback like 2 months later in the top 10. Like, make it make sense. You can't. You cannot make it make sense. Arthur Blank, Falcons owner, releasing a letter to the fan base and to the media this morning, and I will paraphrase it for everyone. The Falcons will be hiring a president of football operations, widely believed and reported to be CBS NFL analyst and legendary Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. Like Jay Glazer of Fox had that last weekend. Now everybody seemingly got it. So it's not official yet, but I think people should be aware, that's going to happen. Matt Ryan is going to get hired as the next football czar of the Atlanta Falcons. And per a bunch of reports, and I'm not saying I have not confirmed it, I'm just saying this is what's been reported, that Matt Ryan and Arthur Blank kind of already know what they want to do, the direction that they want to go in. And we'll see if that ends up being the case. Now, they've got to nail this head coaching hire. Obviously, you need to get the right coach, and they haven't done that yet. They have to do that. And they also have to figure out, is Michael Penix Jr. the guy? We don't know the answer to that question. And that's a terrible place for the Falcons to be in. After a year where I thought Penix was going to rock in this offense with that line, and Caleb McGarry gets hurt before the right tackle, but Penix is a lefty, so he's protecting the blind side, so that didn't help. I thought Penix and the Falcons were going to be way better this year, and the offense was going to be way better than it was. Is Penix the answer? They're going to have to figure that out. I don't know the answer to that question. So it's not like the Falcons have all of a sudden aced the offseason here and enter next season as the favorites in the NFC South. They don't have a first-round pick. That goes to the Rams. James Pierce has looked pretty good, to be fair, the pass rusher they took with that pick. So still have to nail the coach and got to figure out what to do at quarterback. But to this point, for a team that usually gets it wrong, the Atlanta Falcons yesterday, Week 18 NFL Sunday, got 100% of it right. You bet on this Monday. Nick Costos here with you. Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM. You can follow me on all socials at the Costos, TheKosTos. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, who fired head coach Kevin Stefanski literally, not figuratively, literally, as we came on the air at 9 a.m. Eastern this morning. I understand why the Browns did it. I get it. I'm not even going to rail against the Browns, even if I think Stefanski is a great coach. And we'll talk about his future in a second. But I understand where the Cleveland Browns are coming from here. They are about to emerge from the Deshaun Watson wilderness. They're not quite there yet, but they're ready to emerge out of the Deshaun Watson wilderness in what is going to be still a multi-year rebuild by general manager Andrew Berry. And to be fair to Andrew Berry, the Browns smoked last year's NFL draft. And they hadn't had the opportunity to do that because they traded all their picks away for Deshaun Watson, right? And gave him the guaranteed. Obviously a disaster. We don't need to belabor that point, right? But look what the Browns did in last year's NFL draft. And Mason Graham isn't like Aaron Donald. He's not a star, but he's a pretty good player, right? Carson Schweschinger is an unbelievable linebacker, defensive rookie of the year. Harold Fannin. Got, at the very least, 2 serviceable backup quarterbacks. I don't think Shadur is the long-term starter of the team. Shadur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. I thought that they nailed this year's NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns. They're not there yet to be ready to compete. 2 first-round picks this year. Their own and the Jacksonville Jaguars by virtue of the Travis Hunter trade from last April. And if the Browns keep on nailing it here in the draft, and they got to fix their offensive line, that's going to be a problem. It's old, and a bunch of guys are about to hit free agency. But there's no reason why, if the Browns can't keep it up, that they can't be at least contender in their own division in 2027. Probably not 2026. And that's where you can say it's probably best for a clean slate at head coach. Even if I think Stefanski's probably a better option than whoever they get. He's been here for the lean years with Watson. Let's just turn the page. There I go. And make this a more clean break and just optimism and a fresh start for this organization. So I get it from the Browns' perspective. And now we can talk about the rest of the NFL, right? Where I'm actually shocked by some of the response that I've gotten. And I will shamelessly plug my social content with videos I've put up on Instagram at the Costos, TheKos on TOS. Videos I put up on Twitter and takes on Twitter or X, whatever, at the Costos, TheKos TOS. I am a lifelong, diehard New York Football Giants fan. And I would love for my team to hire Kevin Stefanski. And I can't believe how much blowback I've gotten on that. People are like, really? Yeah, Kevin Stefanski stinks. Look what he's done in Cleveland. That's who you want? Okay. 2-time Coach of the Year. Not that Coach of the Year is the be-all, end-all. Like Brian Dable won Coach of the Year. I know it's not the be-all, end-all. He won it twice. He took the Browns out of the wilderness. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh in the COVID year with Baker Mayfield in 2020. It's not his fault he got saddled with Deshaun Watson. And I've seen people say, well, he couldn't coax it out of Deshaun Watson. It's his fault. Really? Do you really think that with everything that happened off the field with Watson, who's a mental case, that it's Stefanski's fault? Who made the playoffs with Joe Flacco off his couch? Really? It's his fault that Deshaun Watson didn't play well? Or maybe, and hear me out here, maybe it's Watson. And maybe he's mentally shot and his head's not in it anymore. And he got the big payday and he's a predator off the field and that went how it went. Now you want to have a conversation with me and we want to sit down and say, I'm going to tell you why I think Kevin Stefanski's not a great coach. Will I listen to that? Yes. Do I disagree? Also yes. But I would hear the conversation. But the proof's going to be in the pudding. Bunch of NFL teams are going to have vacancies. And if you don't think Kevin Stefanski is going to be at the top of a bunch of lists, I don't know what to tell you. For me, as a Giants fan, if it's not going to be Brian Flores and he's suing the team, and I get it. If it's not, and by the way, the Vikings finished 9-8 with their quarterback play. Flores is unbelievable. If it's not going to be Brian Flores, I want Kevin Stefanski. So I get why the Browns did it. I get that the Cleveland Browns fired Stefanski but kept general manager Andrew Berry. But I also think Kevin Stefanski needs to be a head coach next season in the NFL. And I want it to be, selfishly, for my favorite team, the New York Football Giants. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side, I will react to the Cincinnati Bengals announcing that they will keep their overmatched head coach, Zach Taylor, and why this is a huge mistake for Cincinnati. And then we'll talk about the NFC playoff picture with Seattle claiming the number 1 seed on Saturday night in San Francisco. It's You Better You Bet on a Monday, Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM, with me, Nick Costos, and you, whoever the hell you are.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
first down. Burrow, he's under pressure, he's sacked! And there it is, a record that has stood nearly a quarter of a century has a new leader as 30-year-old Myles Garrett records his NFL record 23rd sack of the year.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
CBS, courtesy of The Call, Myles Garrett sets the all-time single-season sack record with a sack of Joe Burrow with 5 minutes to play as the Browns come from behind. An Andre Schmidt game-winning field goal as time expires as the Browns send Cincinnati into the offseason with a defeat. We'll get into Zach Taylor in a second, but just want to give Myles Garrett his just due. Now, it took an extra game, obviously, than like Michael Strahan needed or, LT needed when he had 20. J.J. Watt when he had a couple 20-sack seasons. But it doesn't take away from the unbelievable achievement from Myles Garrett, who is a future first-ballot Hall of Fame player and one of the best defensive players of all time. Period. Full stop. One of the greatest defensive players of all time, whether he had broken the sack record or not. And I thought it was just interesting, just from a human level. I love when we get this level of insight, just into humans in general, but into great athletes or whatever, people in the public eye. When he's asked about it, and he said, I actually had a dream that I didn't break the record, and I wanted to make sure it didn't happen. Because I think just in general, human beings kind of look at people in the public eye like a Myles Garrett and probably just he knows he's going to break it, right? And I'm not doing the debate, be like, oh, athletes, they're just like us, but they are. They're human beings, right? Or he's probably racked with anxiety over that. And look, it's not the type of anxiety that I used to feel when I made no money. Am I going to be able to pay my rent this month? It's not that. But he's probably really anxious about it. And didn't know if it was going to happen. And it took until the final couple minutes of the game, in the final game of the season, before he broke it. Now, did Joe Burrow go down a little easy there? Probably a little. I don't think this is a Brett Favre, Michael Strahan situation. This is probably Burrow just hey, it's the last game of the year. We suck. I don't want to get hit. So I don't think Burrow gifted it to him the way Favre did to Strahan. He did go down a little easy. He's probably going down anyway. But Myles Garrett was basically right there. So congratulations to the great Myles Garrett on breaking the sack record. And after the game, which the Bengals lost to Shedeur Sanders, the fired Kevin Stefanski, and the Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals star receiver Jamar Chase had this to say about what happened in the wake of Garrett breaking the sack record.
I never knew you could let the whole team get on your field. That's like me catching my 10th pass and the whole team running on the field. We're going to get flagged. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? But congrats to him and everything, but, they got to call a flag on that play.
All right. So, Jamar Chase, great player. Maybe the best receiver in the NFL. My advice to Jamar Chase would be say less moving forward and do less moving forward, unless it's catching touchdowns. Jamar Chase this year spit at Jalen Ramsey and earned a suspension for doing so and lied about spitting when it was on video. It was 2025 at the time. There's going to be no video of you doing this. And then goes after the game the Browns should have been flagged because they celebrated Myles Garrett breaking this. Are you serious, dude? Stop it. So you have Jamar Chase and all of the nonsense, and he is not a good player. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's a great player, but you have that. You have Joe Burrow, who, I got to tell you, I've had long hair at points in my life, medium-length hair. It's a pain in the ass when it gets in your eyes. Joe Burrow needs to get a haircut. He's brushing his hair away from his eyes like he's on Dawson's Creek every 10 seconds during his post-game press guy. It's enough, Joe. Joe Burrow is miserable with what's happening in Cincinnati. Don't believe me? Just ask him. He'd love to tell you. Whether you have a microphone, a camera, or not, he'll tell you how miserable he's been. So you have the two premier players on the team. Burrow's unhappy. Chase is clearly unhappy. And the Cincinnati Bengals are just going to run it back with Zach Taylor. Yeah, he's coming back. They want continuity. They want to bring back, director of player personnel, Duke Tobin. They're going to bring back this whole front office that royally screwed things up with Trey Hendrickson, that has swung and missed at multiple early round pass rushers in the draft. They have no juice rushing the passer. Miles Murphy, Shamar Stewart, where the hell have they been? Like, great, you drafted Joe Burrow first overall. I could have done that after what Joe Burrow won the Heisman and the national championship at LSU. I want to know why Zach Taylor's coming back and what the justification for it is. Think about what we said about John Harbaugh. Unforgivable in Lamar Jackson's prime to miss the postseason. The Bengals have missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. And you might say, well, Joe Burrow's been hurt. Well, he wasn't hurt last year. They missed the playoffs. And I will keep saying, if you're that good of a coach, you should be able to figure it out. He's not. He's not. In order for Zach Taylor, and Burrow almost carried him to a Super Bowl. In order for Zach Taylor to win, everything's got to go right. And the first thing, obviously, on the list is Joe Burrow's got to be healthy. That's the first thing. And when he's not, they got no chance. That's who you want coaching this team? Through Joe Burrow's prime? Of course Joe Burrow's pissed. Of course Jamar Chase is pissed. And they're just going to run it back. No problem. Everybody just comes back again. We'll see what they do on the defensive side of the ball this offseason, the Cincinnati Bengals. But I will direct everybody to what myself and Femi said on the old version of You Better You Bet back in August and throughout the whole summer, which was, we don't like the Bengals to make the playoffs this year. And that was before we knew Joe Burrow was going to have turf toe in week 2 against Jacksonville, because the defense is no good. And we saw this play out last year. And now we saw it play out again. So I'll give you an early thought here, and it's way early, and I will reserve the right to change my mind. I don't think the Bengals will make it next year. I don't think they're going to make it. The same coaching staff, the same regime. This is I think people go too far when they say things like, this is Andrew Luck. I don't agree with that. The Bengals did almost win the Super Bowl. The Colts made it to an AFC championship game in the Deflategate game against New England and got absolutely annihilated in that game by LeGarrette Blount and the Patriots. This is not that. But we are inching closer to the Bengals absolutely blowing it for Joe Burrow in his prime. You cannot have this. I cannot believe that this is the decision made by Cincinnati to bring back this coaching staff and the general and the front office. Although given the source and given the owner and given the family and given how cheap they are, I guess it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise. You Better You Bet on this Monday. Nick Costos here with you, Westwood One Sports. You can follow me on all social platforms at the Costos. So the Bengals announce Zach Taylor's coming back. We also got news of a couple of retentions yesterday following the conclusion of their team's game in Week 18. The Indianapolis Colts announced, and Callie Gordon-Irsay, the late Jim Irsay's daughter, will address the media this week, that the Colts will retain head coach Shane Steichen and general manager Chris Ballard. This despite the Colts racing out to a 7-1 record and then an 8-2 record, and literally losing every game down the stretch of the season to finish below 500 at 8-9, and having traded their next 2 first-round picks to the Jets to acquire Sauce Gardner, who barely played after they acquired him. Unlike the Zach Taylor retention from Cincinnati, I don't mind this one. Now, I don't think Chris Ballard's a great general manager. I do not think that. The Colts have not won a division in all the years that he's been in charge. I said in the moment that I didn't like the Sauce Gardner trade. Trading that many assets. They gave up, what the Packers gave up for Micah Parsons. And Sauce Gardner plays corner, and Micah Parsons is an edge rusher. And those positions are not the same. And Micah Parsons, might be Myles Garrett. Sauce Gardner is not Darrelle Revis. You can't make that trade. But we have to be truthful and honest here, right? Even if I don't think Ballard is a great general manager, the Colts got massively unlucky with basically everything that transpired after that trade. And I'm not making excuses for him. It's not an excuse. What I'm saying is a fact. You go all in and you make this move for Sauce Gardner. So you can have this defense, right, with DeForest Buckner, who's lost for the season ultimately, right, in the middle of the defensive line. With the three corners of Charvarius Ward, who's now contemplating retirement. That report came out this morning, all the concussions. And Kenny Moore in the slot. And Sauce Gardner at the other cornerback position. With Daniel Jones at quarterback, who had been magnificent, and Shane Steichen calling the plays. Sauce gets hurt. Daniel Jones, not figuratively, literally breaks his leg. Literally breaks his leg. And then is compensating for that broken leg and tears his Achilles. And here comes Phillip Rivers. And that whole deal, which was entertaining, but like, is insane that it feels like this feels like I think about 2020, like COVID. Did this actually happen? That's how I'm going to look back at Phillip Rivers. Like, did this actually happen? 44-year-old Phillip Rivers playing quarterback for the Colts. The offensive line's not healthy. And here we go. Colts end the season on a huge losing streak. It was a calculated risk. I didn't like it, but it was a calculated risk. You could see the upside potentially, even if I didn't like it. And it's not their fault that Sauce got hurt, and it's certainly not their fault that Daniel Jones blew out his Achilles. The other thing to consider here is that Shane Steichen, and I've got some issues with Shane Steichen decision-making in big games. We can look at week 2 against the Broncos, playing for a 60-yard field goal, got bailed out on a leverage call. How he handled the fourth quarter and overtime at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. Week 18 in his first year against the Houston Texans with Tyrell Goodson getting a pass at the end of the game instead of Jonathan Taylor from Gardner Minshew. Shane Steichen is a really good coach. And he is a great offensive play caller. And think about like the crop of head coaching candidates this cycle. There's no Ben Johnson here. Like Kevin Stefanski gets fired. Stefanski's awesome. Like, you don't think Shane Steichen would get another job like immediately if he got dismissed? Given how organizations are dying to hire young, innovative offensive play callers, if Steichen hit the market, he'd get another job immediately. So if you're not going to fire Steichen, and I don't think they should, can you really fire the GM and hire a new GM to work with the coach you didn't hire? So I don't love Ballard, but I understand this move. The Colts, though, are going to be up against it this offseason. This will be the last thing on Indianapolis. They're going to be up against it this offseason in a big way. Because we are about to enter another offseason for Indy when, and think about this, right? If I asked you, the listener, you, the viewer, you could chime in on YouTube, Twitch, you can tweet us at YouBetterYouBet. Who's going to be the Colts starting quarterback week 1, 2026? What's the answer? Like, it's probably not Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles. And if it's not Daniel Jones, who is it? Is it Riley Leonard, who was really good yesterday in his starting debut, to be fair? And that's like a credit to Steichen, right? Against the Houston Texans. Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it somebody else? It could be any of these options. Like, they're in the quarterback wilderness again, and it's unfortunate because it felt like they had their answer with Daniel Jones, and he gets hurt. Sucks for them. I don't know how we're going to really like them that much going into next year. In this division now, with the Titans entering year 2 with Cam Ward, the Jags year 2 with Liam Cohen, the Texans have made the playoffs all 3 years with DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. I buried the Colts this past offseason. I won't make that mistake again with Shane Steichen. Got to find a way to bring back Alec Pierce, who was great yesterday. Got to figure out the quarterback position. It is a tough break for the Indianapolis Colts that this went the way it did. I get it, bringing back Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard. Last note here for this segment. Ryan Dunleavy, who covers the New York Football Giants for the New York Post, and Jordan Renan, who covers the Giants for ESPN. So this is everywhere now. And it's not unexpected. The Giants are going to retain general manager Joe Schoen. The Giants just completed a 4-13 season. They are 22, 45, and 1 in Joe Schoen's 4 seasons in charge. If you've been listening to the show or watching the show, forget about past years. Forget about past months. Forget about past weeks, plural. In the last week or two, you've been checking out the show. Thank you very much to all our new listeners and viewers and old listeners and viewers alike. You already know how I feel about this. It is an unbelievable mistake to allow this guy to stay when he has he's overseen 3 consecutive absolutely miserable seasons. Like, this is not like the United States of America. This is not capitalism, where, it's not a meritocracy, the Giants, where in order to keep your job, you have to be good at it. It's like, if I came on the air and I suck year after year, you don't think I'm getting replaced? I'm out the door in 1 second. Joe Shane, no problem. Picking the top 5 again, you're coming back. Imagine a world where this happens. Because the Giants like the young core he's built. Wow. What a great job. Like, I'm being sincere here. And I won't even say me. I'll say you, the listener or the viewer. You're a big sports fan, right? Could you have drafted Abdul Carter 3rd overall? Could you have drafted Malik Neighbors 6th overall? Could you have done that? Could you have, like the Brian Burns trade, like he spent like $100,000 on a new Mercedes. Great, you got the Mercedes. Also, you paid for it. Get to give him a huge contract and draft compensation. Kayvon Thibodeau looks like a dud. It's not terrible, but hasn't fulfilled his potential. Evan Neal can't even get on the field. We're gonna you give him credit for this? I'm being serious. He gets credit for this? I don't have any emotion left to spend on this for the Giants. I don't have the energy to rant and rave about this anymore. My thoughts are out there. They're well known. I am going to choose, and maybe this is 2026, new year, new me. Probably not. But we'll go with it because it's only January 5th. I'm going to choose to be optimistic. And I will look at the Chicago Bears. I think Ryan Poles, and I'm on record saying this over the course of years, plural, Ryan Poles is a terrible general manager. Terrible. But they got the right coach. And I like Jackson Dart. I'm not saying Jackson Dart's Caleb Williams, but I like Jackson Dart. I actually like Jackson Dart a lot. And I like his on-field ability, and I love what he says off. I love that he went up to the podium yesterday, even if I wanted the Giants to lose to get the 2nd pick in the draft. The fact that he goes, this is not acceptable. This is not an option moving forward. I love that from Jackson Dart. If they can make the right hire at head coach, why can't they turn it around next year? I'm being serious. This is not the setup to a joke. Why can't they turn it around? Do I have confidence they'll get it right? Not really. Give me Kevin Stefanski and I'll be a happy camper. I will come on the air if the Giants hire Stefanski and say, Joe Shane, good job. I'll say that, and I never say that, and I will. So I will choose to be optimistic in the face of this, even while acknowledging I think it is absolutely the wrong decision made by Giants ownership to bring back GM Joe Shane. On the other side, we will talk the NFC playoff picture, Seattle's win on Saturday night to claim home field over the San Francisco 49ers, and I will give you, dear listener and dear viewer, the 2 NFC teams that were the biggest winners as a result of what happened this weekend. Neither is the Seattle Seahawks, and that's coming up next. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
They're down and 2. Charbonnet. He's got it and plenty more. Touchdown, Seattle.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
Joe Buck and Troy Aikman with the call on Saturday night as the Seahawks stuff Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers offense into a locker and dominate that game, winning 13-3, winning the NFC West in the process, claiming the 1 seed in the NFC playoffs, and with that, the bye and home field advantage. We'll break down the NFC playoffs in a moment, but first, got to tell you about our show sponsor, BetMGM, because today, BetMGM account holders will receive an Any Sport Parlay Boost token. And I'm going to give you a parlay to place at the end of the show today if you feel so inclined. Score a bigger payout if your wager with the Parlay Boost token hits. Tokens can be used on parlays and same-game parlays. Download the BetMGM app. Visit BetMGM.com and make it legendary with our title sponsor, the great people at BetMGM. I said before the year, and I got plenty of stuff wrong, but this is an opportunity for me to say something that I got right. I said before the year to not be surprised if we get to the end of the season and the Seattle Seahawks have the best defense in the NFL. I don't know if I would actually say Seattle's the best defense. Like the Eagles' defense, I think, is probably just as good, if not a little better, with Super Bowl pedigree. The Texans' defense is obviously awesome, even though they did get shredded by Riley Leonard, Alec Pierce, and the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. But the Texans' defense is great. What the Seattle Seahawks did on Saturday night to a San Francisco 49ers offense that punted twice in the month of December. Think about, for a second, December. Just in general. Honestly, I don't want to say it's my favorite month because I love the summer. Well, like December, outside of the summer months, December's my favorite month. I love Christmas. And I try to pack in tons of activities for like my family, right? For me, my wife, and my daughter, etc. around the Christmas season. So I try to make December feel like a lot's going on, right? It's important to me in my personal life with my family. And obviously it's like towards the end of the football regular season. December's like a long month. The Niners punted 2 times in the entire month and then scored 3 points in an entire game on Saturday night against the Seattle defense. Not to rub salt in the Baltimore Ravens' wounds or add insult to injury for the Ravens. Don't you wish Mike McDonald was your head coach? Don't you wish it was Mike McDonald, right? Don't you wish it was Mike McDonald and not John Harbaugh? At the time, I felt like it was an easy decision. In retrospect, probably like the easiest decision in the history of decisions for Mike McDonald over John Harbaugh. But that's not what happened. And now Mike McDonald, one of the Coach of the Year candidates, I think Vrabel will win, but still, coordinating a defense that shut down the Kyle Shanahan offense. And as far as the Seattle offense goes, I'll say this for Sam Darnold. And I feel this way, and the analogy that I would like to draw here on You Better You Bet on this Monday, Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. Follow me on socials at the Costos, TheKostos. Like I say to my wife about driving, right? Whether it's just me and my wife in the car or whether like our 20-month-old daughter's in the car. I view success when I'm driving the car with my family in the car. Not if we get somewhere on time, but if we make it there in one piece. That is success to me when I'm driving the car with my family in it. Do we get from point A to point B, whether we're on time or whether we're late? I don't care. My primary objective is to ensure and secure the safety of my loved ones and my family and the 2 people I love the most in this world, my wife and my daughter. That's what I care about. And what Sam Darnold did on Saturday night was the equivalent of that. He made it from point A to point B. There was nothing flashy. He wasn't swerving in and out of lanes. There was no flipping the bird. There was no windows down, blasting music, enjoying the open road. He made it from point A to point B without incident. And it's all that was needed and all that was required. I don't even think he was that good in the game. Had a couple of passes that were really high, snagged out of the air with the greatest of ease by Jackson Smith and Jigba, looking like Spider-Man with webbed hands grabbing the football. Like, we'll get to like the goal to go sequence at the beginning of the game. But look, he didn't make the critical error, and he usually makes the critical error, and he gets a lot of credit for that, right? Did not make the critical error. And now Seattle, 2 wins away from a Super Bowl appearance, maybe a Super Bowl 48 rematch against the 1 seed in the AFC with home field advantage, the Denver Broncos. I said this yesterday on my shows on WFAN in New York, and then Countdown to Kickoff nationally on Westwood One Sports. I don't like either one of these teams to win the NFC, the Niners or the Seahawks, because both have fatal flaws, in my estimation. The San Francisco fatal flaw is obvious. The defense stinks. And I know they only allowed 13 points on set. That's out of this. Like, the Seahawks didn't need to do anything in the game. Not that they would have, but like, the Niners' defense is not good. And I don't even blame Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator. I don't blame him. Think about the way, and I've said this before, right, that we talk about Green Bay post-Micah Parsons injury. The Niners lost Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, who are both going to Canton when it's all said and done. And they keep losing players every week. And Joe Buck and Troy Aikman talked a lot about that correctly on Saturday night. They don't have the horses to make a run. And they will lose to the Eagles coming up this weekend. And next hour, I'll give you my thoughts on the NFC betting markets for Wild Card Weekend. So I don't trust the Niners defense. And I also don't trust Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offense. Now, Darnold did what he needed to do on Saturday night, and I just gave him credit for that. But let's consider a couple situations in the game. And really, the one that really comes to mind for me, and I couldn't believe it, and I bet Seattle in the game. Like, I won my bet. I'm happy about it. Opening drive of the game, 1st and goal from the 1. He takes a 10-yard sack. Like, Troy Aikman's like apoplectic watching. Like, what are you, the one thing you can't do. They end up getting some yardage back. You get a 4th and goal from the 4. Zach Charbonnet on this play, and ESPN did an awesome job highlighting this. Zach Charbonnet is wide open in the flat for a walk-in touchdown. Darnold looks at him and goes, nah, I don't want to do this, and fires an incompletion to Cooper Kupp in the middle of the end zone, which would be like me at a bar looking at a girl who's looking at me being like, come over and talk to me, that I find attractive, and going, you know what? No. Let me talk to this girl who's with this guy who's much better looking and has more money than me. What? What are you talking about? Great. Seattle got home field advantage. Awesome. If the Rams go to Seattle, I'll pick the Rams to beat them. And if the Eagles go to Seattle, I'll pick the Eagles to beat them. And I think the Niners season will end this Sunday on the road in Philadelphia. And we don't even know if Brock Purdy going to be 100% in the game. After the stinger, this is Sting! Shout out to Tony Schiavone. We don't even know if Brock Purdy is going to be fully healthy. Final hour, power hour coming up next. We'll talk about the Eagles and the Rams. We'll get to the NFC playoffs, more coaching news, and all my bets for tonight. Coming up to wrap up the show in the next 60 minutes, You Better You Bet on a Monday with me, Nick Costos, on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Bring it up, Kenny. Final hour. Power hour. You better you bet on Westwood One Sports. Nick Costos, our amazing crew, and whoever the hell you are. The Power Hour and every hour here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app and visit BetMGM.com. All my bets for tonight coming up to close the show, NBA and college basketball. And we'll talk about some news, some big news in college football as it impacts both the rest of this season and next season at the collegiate level. Got some news and notes on college basketball and the NBA to share as well. We will do that at the end of the show and fit some non-NFL content in on this Monday. But a full-on NFL-centric first 2 hours of the program today on this Monday. Open the show with the stunning Steelers win last night at home to beat the Baltimore Ravens 26-24 to win the AFC North and send the Ravens packing. I said it in hour one. I've been saying it for years, plural. The Ravens need to fire John Harbaugh. We have long since passed the expiration date for the Harbaugh-Lamar Jackson partnership. We are now through 8 seasons with Lamar and Harbaugh. 0 Super Bowl appearances. Why would anyone think it's going to change next season? And I'm not saying Harbaugh's not a great coach. And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson's blameless in all of this. But you're never firing the 2-time MVP quarterback. Like, if given the choice between the multiple-time MVP winning quarterback or the coach, you're taking the quarterback 100 times out of 100, and if you think otherwise, buddy, you don't know ball. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. John Harbaugh has got to go. And his decision to have Lamar Jackson go backwards 3 yards and take a knee with a timeout on the board, instead of trying to get closer for Tyler Loop, the rookie kicker, pressurized spot, on the road, world watching, AFC North title on the line, at the hardest stadium to kick at in the entire NFL, not making it an easier kick for Tyler Loop, unforgivable. Not making the playoffs in a year of Lamar Jackson's prime, unforgivable. The Ravens need to move on from John Harbaugh. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin live to fight another week. Kyle Hamilton getting concussed at the start of the second half. This doesn't happen without that. Steelers offense was doing nothing prior to the Kyle Hamilton concussion, and then Pittsburgh goes touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown, touchdown from there to win the game. Unbelievable second half from Rodgers after a miserable first half from the Steelers quarterback and the future first ballot Hall of Famer. Rodgers able to rewrite the narrative at the end of his career for at least 1 week. And who knows, maybe he comes back next season. And I told you why. I think the fan base that was cheering just as hard for the Steelers as Steelers fans and anyone that bet on the Pittsburgh Steelers last night, the Houston Texans. Because the Texans now go from being an underdog in Baltimore next Monday night in the final wildcard game of Super Wildcard Weekend to, and I'll bring up my BetMGM screen here, Houston is now, in real time, a 3.5-point road favorite at the Steelers. So we are out to Houston minus 3.5. So from an underdog to more than a 3-point favorite. It is a huge result for the Houston Texans. A huge result for the Texans to get to go to Pittsburgh instead of to Baltimore. And now, with Mahomes out, and Burrow out, and Lamar out, there can be no excuse, zero excuse for Josh Allen Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills to not at least make the Super Bowl. And if they don't, and if they lose this weekend in Jacksonville, and Buffalo's a 1 point, Buffalo's going to get bet over the course of the week, because they always do. That spread ain't closing one. It's closing more than one. If the Bills lose to Jacksonville, I want someone to tell me with a straight face that Sean McDermott should come back as Bills coach. Remember, McDermott and Allen are on the same timeline as Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Year 9 coming up. With no Super Bowl appearance this year, you cannot justify bringing back Sean McDermott. You're never firing Josh Allen, right? Someone's got to pay the price. It needs to be Sean McDermott if the Bills don't reach the Super Bowl. We'll talk about the Eagles and the Rams in the NFC, the Bears and the Packers as well in a moment, but just really want to punch this point home because I'm still kind of buzzing about it, and I'm still kind of in ecstasy over it. This unbelievable job that Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth did last night on NBC on the call of the Steelers and the Ravens. Kenny Henderson is our excellent engineer here on You Better You Bet. Kenny, if you'd be so kind, please, give me the Chris Boswell missed extra point into the Tyler Lute missed field goal to end the game.
The extra point from Boswell. Twisting, no good! No good! He missed the extra point. He now has a chance to win the division for the Ravens. The final play of the regular season for the final spot in the playoffs. Tyler Lute from 44. Snap good. Hold it. The kick is no good. It is wide right. And the Steelers are the champions of the North.
Amazing. Now, Mike Tirico justly gets his flowers. I think everyone pretty much universally acknowledges how good he is, right? And to the people that don't and think like Tirico's not good, like I hate to say it like this, like you're actually wrong. Like this is not, it's not subjective. This is objectivity. He's great. There's no argument. You can like not like his style for whatever, I don't know why you wouldn't, but he's unreal. And I think that people, and I don't mean to say this like I'm talking down to people. This would be honestly like I feel like I'm an expert in this field in the same way like you, the listener, you, the viewer, you're an expert in whatever it is that you do. And like I would never sit down with like someone who's in finance and try to tell them about global economies. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just trust me when I say the degree of difficulty that this job entails, play-by-play, especially on this stage and this sport, the fact that Tirico is on top of it the way he is stunning. He is 10 out of 10. He's probably the best pound-for-pound play-by-play man, and there are great ones. Ian Eagles, way up there on the level. Sean McDonough's on the level. You could say that Jim Nantz is on the level. Joe Buck's on the level. Kevin Burkhardt's on the level. We have lots of great play. Mike Breen, many play-by-play announcers in many different sports are great. You could say Mike Tirico might be the best. That's how good he is. And I think most people would acknowledge that. The fact that people don't think Chris Collinsworth is good, and this one I think can be a little more subjective, color commentators. The fact that people don't think Collinsworth is great, I don't understand how you feel that way. Now, I get it. Like some people don't like, and I'm not saying Collinsworth is pizza. Like pizza's universally loved. But like some people don't like pizza. Some people don't like sushi. Some people don't like ice cream. Like, it's okay. People can have their opinions. I just disagree. I think all of those things are great. And I think Chris Collinsworth is great. Kenny, load up, please, the second Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers touchdown. And listen to Chris Collinsworth makes this call. This is the second Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers touchdown from last night.
3rd and 1. Fake to Henry Jackson. Shot downfield. Zay Flowers again. Zay Flowers inside the 20. He's going to go.
Amazing. So again, like while you're watching this on TV, like I was last night, like the balls, like even before the ball's in the air, Collinsworth goes, they did it again. And I'm sitting, I have goosebumps right now. I have chills. No BS. In that moment, while the ball's in the air, or even before the ball, when Collinsworth says that, I'm like, whoa, what's about to happen here? And then you see Zay Flowers streaking down the middle of the field unencumbered. Just absolutely incredible. I really wanted to just give them their just due. To me, and I actually have never said something like this in all the years I've been doing You Better You Bet. To me, the gold standard of broadcasting an NFL game has long been Nance and Romo in the 18 AFC Championship game, Patriots at Chiefs. Patriots win in overtime. After last night, it might be Tarico Collinsworth on the call of the Steelers and the Ravens. You Better You Bet on this Monday. Nick Costos here with you on Westwood One Sports. We have a YouTube commenter saying, someone please tell Nick that he is getting more Kim Jong-un with that hair by the day. I guess I do look like the North Korean dictator. Just a little bit. I will say I'm probably more handsome than him. I think I'm also a little taller than him. And I don't get to say that about many people. So shout out to everyone who compares me to Kim Jong-un with the hair. It is a little poofy this morning. Might have to get that taken care of later this week at the salon I go to. Not a barber shop. The salon that yours truly attends. Okay. Let's talk the NFC playoff picture. So I told you to end the second hour of the show that I don't like Seattle or San Francisco to win the NFC. And that I think the two big winners in the NFC this past weekend, neither of them played on Saturday night or Saturday at all, with Carolina obviously ultimately winning the NFC South. For me, the two best teams in the NFC are the 3-seed Philadelphia Eagles and the 5-seed Los Angeles Rams. And last week here on Westwood One Sports, I laid out the scenario that at the time, now the Seahawks closed a favorite in the game at San Francisco. I bet them. They covered. It was awesome. But at the time I was talking about it, the Niners were favored. Now a small favorite, but favored. That what was going to happen if the betting market held, we were going to get Rams at Eagles in the first round. And my sense is, I think a lot of people like Seattle also. I like the Eagles. That's who I've hitched my betting wagon to. And a lot of people like the Rams. And you can understand why, right? And that Eagles-Rams was a nightmare scenario for a lot of sports bettors in round one, like me, who bet the Eagles to win the NFC and win the Super Bowl. Go back to back. You think I want to see the Rams in round one with my Eagles ticket? I'll take it a step further. I don't have a Rams ticket, but I'll speak for Rams bettors. Do you think Rams bettors and Rams fans would rather go on the road to Carolina in round one and be a double-digit favorite? Or go to Philadelphia and be like a 1-point road favorite, or like have the price be a pick'em in that game? The Eagles and the Rams are huge winners coming out of Week 18. And yes, the Eagles lost to the Commanders with Tanner McKee starting, and some people are criticizing the Eagles for it because the Bears lost to the Lions in what was one of the dumbest betting markets of the season. Bears favored by 4 or 4.5 against Detroit. Really? With Amon-Ra St. Brown playing? Talked about that on the show yesterday. Bet Detroit. I didn't know if the Lions were going to win, but certainly felt like they could cover that number on the road in Chicago. And maybe it'll turn out to be a tactical error by Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni and GM Howie Roseman. But they clearly didn't really care about getting the 2-seed or the 3-seed. They clearly didn't think it was that big of a difference, having to face Green Bay or San Francisco in the first round. So I will give them, as the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions, the benefit of the doubt. And say, if they don't think it's that big a deal, then I'm not going to think it's that big a deal either. Brock Purdy had a stinger on the final play of the game on Saturday night. Now, Kyle Shanahan said he's going to be good to go. The Niners are the walking wounded. This point spread last night, Eagles and Niners, opened with Philly a juiced 2.5-point favorite. And I thought to myself, as I clicked the button, well, that's not right. Do you know who agreed with me? Everybody. Because the point spread is now Philly minus 3.5. If I had to bet the current market, I actually still think it's the Eagles, but the opportunity was there at lower limits, obviously, last night. But look, I think Philly, at the very least, is going to win the game. So I think the Eagles will win and advance to the next round. And the Rams go from having to go to Philly, where they are now a 10-point road favorite at Carolina in the Houston Texan Andy Dalton Invitational, which is the early game on Saturday afternoon. LA minus 10, 46.5 the total. My sense is, and we've seen the market come down a little bit already towards Carolina, and the Panthers did beat the Rams, like somewhat recently. The Panthers beat them. That maybe the Panthers will draw some interest here. The Rams have not been that impressive coming down the stretch. Blew the game in Seattle to lose home field advantage in the NFC West. Lost a week ago today in Atlanta against the Falcons. And then we're trailing the Cardinals 20-16, a terrible Cardinals team, before going pedal to metal, probably getting Stafford MVP with the 4 touchdowns, and blowing out Arizona, covering the spread in the process, winning 37-20. If that point spread dips a little bit to Rams 9.5, I don't know if it will, but I'm just saying, it's Monday. We have 6 days before the game is played, or 5 full days leading into Saturday. I have not bet the game yet. I am very interested in betting the Rams. No interest in Carolina unless the point spread went up. So 0 interest there. So give me the LA Rams against the Carolina Panthers. And what I think we are going to see in the NFC postseason is an NFC championship game with the Eagles hosting the Rams. The Packers, to me, feel like a team with a ton of hypothetical upside that I don't think they'll be able to reach. Maybe they can beat the Bears on Saturday night. That game's on Amazon Prime, by the way. And my only beef with the broadcast schedule this weekend is I wish Packers-Bears were on Sunday and Patriots-Chargers were on Saturday. To me, this feels like the league throwing Amazon Prime a bone and giving them an awesome game. And it is going to be the highest-rated game in the history of Amazon Prime. Packers-Bears on Saturday night. I don't think the Packers have the goods to make it without Parsons. I think the Bears are a year early, and I think that's pretty obvious, actually. And I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just calling it like I see it. I don't like the Niners, as I've told you, and I think the Seahawks will be one and done against either the Rams or the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and we'll see what it ends up being. We'll see what it ends up being. Eagles-Rams NFC Championship game. I'll take the Eagles. If you wanted to take the Rams, I'd have absolutely no problem with that. We'll take a quick break. And on the other side, we have major breaking news in the National Football League. The Las Vegas Raiders have fired head coach Pete Carroll. So a day after the Raiders clinched the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, they have cleaned house, firing one-and-done head coach Pete Carroll. My analysis of that and the top of the NFL Draft coming up next here on Westwood One Sports.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Snap there. Carlson swings. Carlson has it!
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos on Westwood One Sports.
When you think about the great wins in the history of, and Fox Sports courtesy of the call coming back from break. When you think about the great wins in the history of, you know what? Oh, Kenny, bring the music back up here. Bring it back up underneath me. Oh, yeah. When you think about it, Super Bowl 11 against the Minnesota Vikings. Super Bowl 15 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Super Bowl 18 against the then Washington Redskins. Marcus Allen running into the night. 2002 AFC Championship game against the Tennessee Titans with my friend Rich Gannon at quarterback. Where does yesterday's get win rank on the list? One of the actual worst football games that has ever been played. Oh, I'm not done with the music yet, Kenny. You can bring it back up. I'm not done with it yet. One of the worst games you could possibly imagine. Chris Olodokun. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name. I think it's like Olodokun, actually. Which sounds like a move that Ryu or Ken have in Street Fighter. Hadouken! Olodokun! Kenny Pickett and AOC. Ashton Genty running into brick walls. Just a miserable football game. In fact, if you had to take Week 18 and distill it down into one game, it would be Raiders-Chiefs. That's how bad it was. Daniel Carlson from 60 as time expires to win it for the Las Vegas Raiders. Pride and poise. Commitment to excellence. Just fire the coach. Baby. Al Davis rolling over in his grave. You know, after the Raiders beat the Redskins in Super Bowl 18, Al Davis was asked by Brett Musburger post-game, hey, like, how do you manage to keep doing this? And Al's response, it's iconic. First thing you do is you get the best coaches. And then you get the best players. And you tell them one thing. Just win, baby. What the hell's happened to this team? And you could say that over the course of this entire century for the Raiders. As I said to you to end last segment, the Las Vegas Raiders fire head coach Pete Carroll, which was an absolute necessity after the Raiders were the worst team in the NFL this year and proved it by getting blown out last week by my New York Football Giants. Pete Carroll, one and done. This is the statement from Raiders owner Mark Davis. Quote, the Las Vegas Raiders have relieved Pete Carroll of his duties as head coach. We appreciate and wish him and his family all the best. Moving forward, General Manager John Spytek will lead all football operations in close collaboration with Tom Brady, including the club's search for a next head coach. Together, they will guide football decisions with a shared focus on leadership, culture, and alignment with the organization's long-term goals. It sounds like ChatGPT did like the last couple lines of that. So whatever. But this will be the Raiders' sixth head coach in 6 years, which is like Baxter eating the wheel of cheese in Anchorman, and Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell goes, I'm not even mad. It's amazing. Incredible. Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, whomever the new head coach is, Josh McDaniels, John Gruden, and interim head coach Rich Bisaccia. And the only one that took the Raiders to the playoffs was the interim coach, Rich Bisaccia. Unbelievable. But for the Raiders, absolutely the right move. And the season ended. I'm being sincere right now. I mocked the Raiders a little bit to start, only because I care, and I mean that. I love sports, and I love the NFL. And the NFL is unequivocally better when the Raiders are good. And this helps the Raiders move towards good. I don't know if they'll get there this year, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. Because not only have the Raiders moved on from Pete Carroll, who's like a boomer ball to the nth degree, like roster stinks, let's draft a running back. Don't have a quarterback, let's trade for Geno Smith. Like, these were all things that in the moment were like, are you serious? Offensive linemen are terrible. And Tyler writes in our chat, and Tyler's anti-Ashton Genty. Tyler Morales, our technical director. Tyler famously anti-Ashton Genty. Genty this year had 266 carries for 975 yards. It's brutal. My opinion, I think Ashton Genty's really good. I don't know that Emmitt Smith or Jim Brown could have had success running behind this Raiders offensive line. They were doomed from the start, and I said it all offseason. They are clearly the worst team in their own division. And you hired Pete Carroll to make the team respectable, and not only were they not respectable, they are the worst team in the league in picking first overall. And like I've been saying, since like that epic Thursday Night Football cluster you-know-what against the Denver Broncos, Carroll needed to go. Because the franchise needs to hit the reset button at quarterback, and you can't have, and I'm not an ageist, but let's be honest here. Like, I like the Kyle Whittingham hire. He's going to be 67 next year for Michigan. I'm not an ageist. But you can't have like a 74-year-old boomer head coach. Like, let's bring Fernando Mendoza in and run the Pete Carroll, like the prehistoric offense from the Mesozoic era in the 1980s. You can't have it. You can't have it. So because of the events in the early window yesterday, the Raiders went into yesterday's game against the Chiefs knowing they had the first overall pick. And I'm sure Pete Carroll's like, oh, I love this. Now we can try and win a meaningless game, which they did. Credit to them. By all accounts, the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza from Indiana first overall, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Maybe it'll be Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, and they'll play each other on Friday night. Can't wait for it. In the college football playoff semis, Miami and Ole Miss coming up on Thursday. And we have news, by the way, on Ole Miss's quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, that we'll share with you to close the show coming up in a little bit, that I think will absolutely impact the top of the NFL draft. The Raiders are going to get the quarterback of their choice, whether it's Mendoza, Dante Moore, somebody else, we'll see. And now they have the opportunity to hire a new coach. A miserable swing and a miss, and a predictable swing and a miss with Pete Carroll. I have no idea if they'll hire the right guy. No idea. But we know Pete Carroll was the wrong guy. So you give the Raiders credit because they could have compounded bad decisions, right? And say, well, we fired Antonio Pierce after 1 year. Now we can't do that with Pete Carroll. No. Sunk cost. Like that kind of like mode of thinking led the Giants to bring Brian Dable back for another year. So we can't fire another head coach after a couple years. Yes, you can. He's terrible. So I give the Raiders credit for courage is a really like dramatic word here. I actually don't even really mean it, but for having like the gumption is a better word to fire Pete Carroll. It's the right move, 100%. And just on a human level, I do feel a little bad for Pete Carroll. You know, NFL Network has that series, A Football Life, right? Pete Carroll has lived a football life. He was the head coach of and this is like, he was an assistant and a defensive coordinator long before that, right? But head coach of the Jets in the mid-90s. Head coach of the Patriots, you know, prior to Belichick coming in. The USC years, national championships. Won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. Probably should have won another if not for the infamous throw at the goal line, right? With to Ricardo Lockett instead of handing the ball to Marshawn Lynch. And the Seahawks lose Super Bowl 49 to New England instead of potentially going back-to-back. I don't know if Pete Carroll is an NFL Hall of Famer. He's a football Hall of Famer, though, for sure, when you take into account what he accomplished at the college level. And it does because he's never getting another job. And, like, I don't say that meanly. Like, who's hiring Pete Carroll at this point, like, honestly? It does kind of suck for him that this is how it ends. And you can say, well, shouldn't have gotten the job in the first place, and you're probably right. But you can still feel bad for Pete Carroll. It's a bleepy way for him to go out. And when I say bleepy, I mean a word that rhymes with spit. As the Raiders fire Pete Carroll. To go along with the Browns firing Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons firing Raheem Morris, the Colts retain Shane Steichen and general manager Chris Ballard, the Giants retaining general manager Joe Shane. And if you missed any of those breakdowns, just search the show in podcast form, You Bet, wherever you find your podcasts. Nick Costos here with you, Westwood One Sports, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. All the bets for tonight coming up at the end of the show. It's a little bit more on the NFL draft and the top of the NFL draft after yesterday. And this is going to be less like, hey, I think, the Jets should take this player at number 2. More just like, let's talk about these teams a little bit. The Jets, by virtue of their no-show in Buffalo against the Bills and the Bills' backups, have the 2nd overall pick in the draft. And I actually want to make a little bit of a mea culpa here, and we'll do this more later in the week once the Jets officially announce Aaron Glenn's coming back, which is the expectation. I've been saying for quite some time now that even though the Jets season has been miserable, that they're on the right path. And I still believe that. With a war chest of picks in this year's draft, multiple first-rounders, 3 first-rounders in 2027, the Jets are basically going to be able to get whoever they want in the next couple drafts. Quarterback, maybe it's Jeremiah Smith next year at receiver. They're going to control the next couple drafts. Whichever one they want to, they'll be able to. And I think that was the prudent move, was to trade Sauce Gardner and trade Quinnen Williams for a team going nowhere. And I think Darren Muji, the GM, has largely done a good job. Now, I don't know if he's going to pick the right players. I know Jets fans, and I live in New York, Jets fans are pessimistic about that because the Jets usually screw this up. And to be fair, screwed it up a couple years ago when they had 3 first-round picks and didn't get it right. Past failures do not have to be indicative of future failure or future success. I would say to Jets fans, keep an open mind and be a little optimistic. That's my honest thought. I don't know, though, and I actually think I need to take an L on this. I think I was wrong. I've said for weeks, Aaron Glenn deserves a chance to come back as Jets head coach. Let's see how he does with a reasonable quarterback, not Justin Fields, who's brutal. Not Brady Cook, not Tyrod Taylor. The Jets did not record a single interception this season. Quarterbacks against the Jets went for 36 touchdowns and no interceptions. It's like a video game. Except if this were a video game, you would have hit the reset button after week 3. You would not have continued on. I wouldn't have at least continued forward with it. And making matters even worse, Aaron Glenn, for younger fans who don't know this, I watched him play for the Jets. Aaron Glenn he's probably the 2nd best corner in the history of the team, behind Darrelle Revis. He's awesome. Who else would you choose? D. Milner? Come on. Glenn was an awesome corner. 0 picks. And they're non-competitive down the stretch. And I understand. And Brady Cook's terrible. I get it. But to get railroaded and bulldozed like they did by the Patriots and the Bills, and they're not competitive in these games. I think the Jets are going to bring Aaron Glenn back, and we'll see how it goes. I think if it were up to me, I think I'd fire him. What's the upside? I don't see it after 1 year. And I can be wrong. And I think I was wrong already about this. I'll take the L on this. My mind was changed yesterday during the Jets-Bills game and how pathetic they were. I do think there's reason for optimism for the Jets. I don't know where it comes from, though, on this coaching staff and the head coach, Aaron Glenn. Give you 2 other NFL draft-related notes. Way too early NFL, just as an excuse to talk about the teams. We don't know yet about the fate of Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon following a calamity of a season. As the Cardinals end the year, and what was a year where I thought they were going to make the playoffs, but they talk about an L. That's the scarlet letter, the cardinal red L that I'll have to wear for that take. The Cardinals lose yesterday to the Rams, 3-14. We'll pick 3rd overall in the draft. We'll see about Jonathan Gannon. The Cardinals are kind of in a rough spot this offseason, and I'm going to tell you why. Kyler Murray's not coming back. He's played his last down as quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. You can't have Jacoby Brissett be the quarterback of the deal. You can't have that. Now, let's assume the Raiders, which we think the Raiders will take a quarterback 1st overall. The Jets may also take a quarterback 1st overall. And let's just say that let's say it's Mendoza and Dante Moore. What are the Cardinals going to do at quarterback? Who's playing quarterback for the Cardinals next year? It doesn't look like they're going to get one of the guys at the top of the draft, right? They're picking third. Maybe the Jets pass on one. Maybe the Jets trade down. We'll see. We know the Raiders are going to take one. It'd be insane if they didn't. The Cardinals could find themselves in a tough spot here. And we'll get into Trinidad Chambliss, and it looks like he's going to stay at Ole Miss. We'll do that on the other side. So even if Arizona keeps Jonathan Gannon, GM Monty Ossenfort moves on from them, I think Arizona's in a tough spot as far as the quarterback position is concerned this offseason. And last note for now, and we'll take a break. The Tennessee Titans get blown out yesterday by the Jaguars, and Cam Ward is hurt early in the game on a touchdown run. The Titans saddled Cam Ward in his rookie year with Brian Callahan, who may go down as one of the worst head coaches in the history of the league. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but not a good head coach. And then retread interim coach Mike McCoy. The Titans at 4th overall need to just take best player available, probably on the defensive line. Maybe it's Ruben Bain from Miami. Maybe it's Arvell Reese from Ohio State. Maybe it's Peter Woods. We'll see. I don't even know what team. Tyler, what team does Peter? I think I know what it is. I don't want to get it wrong. I just saw him on a bunch of mock drafts. Defensive lineman, Clemson. I thought that was right, but I didn't want to say it and be wrong. Thank you guys very much. Titans take the best player available, nail the head coaching hire. No reason why they can't contend next year with Cam Ward on the ascent in the AFC South. On the other side, we will wrap up the Magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet with a bunch of news and notes around college football, college basketball, and the NBA, and then all my bets for tonight. I got some in the NBA and college basketball. It's all coming up next here on a Monday. You Better You Bet. Nick Costos, Westwood One Sports, presented by BetMGM.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Costos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I'm going to give you some bets for tonight coming up in a moment, and maybe you can use those at BetMGM. Because today, BetMGM account holders will receive an Any Sport Parlay Boost token. Score a bigger payout if your wager with the Parlay Boost token hits. Tokens can be used on parlays and same-game parlays. Download the BetMGM app. Visit BetMGM.com so you can make it legendary. We will wrap up the magnificent Football Monday edition of You Better You Bet. You Better You Bet. You Better You Bet. I get paid to speak for a living. With a bunch of notes from the world of college football, a little college hoops, NBA, and all my bets for tonight. But I have some thank yous to dole out first. Our executive producer, the great Bill Zimmerman, our technical director, Tyler Morales, our engineer, Kenny Henderson, and our video producers, the tag team of Downtown Mike Brown and Dan the Man Turner. Downtown and the Man and Downtown, there's something there. I'm going to play with it. Very important to say this. On Monday, January 5th, in the year of our Lord, 2026. Today is the first day on Westwood One Sports that the network in its totality is live. So you heard this morning, my friend Drake Toll, executive produced by Addie Bates. Drake, an emerging star in sports media. Drake doing an awesome job holding down 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on Twitter at Drake C. Toll. Be sure to check out the Drake Toll Show here on Westwood One Sports leading into yours truly. So we have Drake this morning. Coming up right after me, less than 15 minutes from right now, Bleck and Abdallah in their maiden voyage here on Westwood One Sports. Two great dudes out of Chicago. They'll be with my friend Mitch Rosen in the studio there in Chicago. Bleck and Abdallah are coming up next. We can't wait for that. They're going to be absolute stars here on Westwood One Sports. Jim Rome later today, obviously the living legend from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And then our friends Brad Evans and Pat Boyle on BetMGM tonight. So this is tremendous. And I love being a part of it, and it was great to do it last week. And now it feels like we are Voltron. All the pieces have come together. I'm very bullish about all of this. So congratulations to our colleagues, Bleck and Abdallah, who again are coming up in their first show on these airwaves. Be sure to check it out at noon Eastern here on Westwood One Sports. Okay, news and notes from around the world of sports. Non-NFL, because we've done nothing but NFL for the first 2 hours and 50 minutes of today's show. College football. Tyler, just repost that news for me here, the one with the Ole Miss with Trinidad Chambliss. As ahead of Ole Miss's college football playoff semifinal on Thursday against Miami, Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss have agreed to, and this is so funny. I don't know when it's going to stop being weird to read like college program reaching agreement on a new deal with a player. It's just still weird to me. So Trinidad Chambliss has signed a new deal with Ole Miss, and Chambliss was obviously the best player on the field on New Year's night against Georgia, as Ole Miss upset Georgia in that game, 39-34. Now, the deal is contingent on Chambliss having his eligibility waiver request granted, which means if the NCAA offers him a 6th year of eligibility, he will be back as the Ole Miss quarterback next year. And why this matters for the NFL, we were all thinking it last Thursday, right, on New Year's, and a bunch of NFL draft analysts, like reputable ones, not like me back in the day doing mock drafts for Bleacher Report after a bong rip, I'm kidding, little, are all saying, is Chambliss going to be QB1, your first-round pick? I'll tell you what, if he comes back to college, that is a big piece off the board in the NFL draft. And it looks like Chambliss will return to Ole Miss next year, pending him getting an extra year of eligibility. At the very least, he will start for Ole Miss on Thursday against Miami, and we will bring you way more on those games. Ole Miss, Miami Thursday, Oregon, Indiana on Friday as the week moves along. So Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss agreeing to terms on a deal, assuming Chambliss gets an extra year of eligibility. We saw 2 other big quarterback news items over the weekend that won't matter for a couple months as we head into next college football season, but just to get this on your radar because I think it's going to be really interesting. Indiana, who got Curtis Rourke last year out of the portal, and then obviously Fernando Mendoza from Cal this year out of the portal, and he won the Heisman, land TCU quarterback Josh Hoover, who just set the TCU single-season passing yards record. So he'll be Indiana's quarterback next year, and hard to imagine him not being good for Curt Cignetti and the Hoosiers. The number one ranked player in the transfer portal by many accounts was Cincinnati quarterback Brendan Sorsby. He is signing with Texas Tech. And the Red Raiders, like the best team money can buy until they got to play Oregon in the college football playoff quarterfinals. Brendan Sorsby will be the next Texas Tech quarterback. And you would think the Texas Tech will be right up at the top of the Big 12 odds board next season and a minus price probably to make next year's college football playoff. In college basketball, this is something that I think will matter as far as the national championship picture and the Final Four picture is concerned. Now, Kansas lost this weekend to UCF. The Jayhawks lost to Central Florida. UCF's 12-1, by the way. Good team. Kansas freshman Darren Peterson returned from his hamstring and lower leg injuries in this game and scored 26 points in 23 minutes. Didn't play the final 10 minutes of the game. By all accounts, Peterson is going to be the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, and this draft class is stacked, whether you think about Peterson, BYU's A.J. DeBonsa, Duke's Cameron Boozer, North Carolina's Caleb Wilson. It is stacked. If Peterson's able to come back and play for Kansas and play in most games, Kansas's upside is absolutely to go to the Final Four. Something to monitor if Darren Peterson can stay healthy for Kansas. And two quick notes in the NBA. My Thunder over adjusted win total overs are not looking great at the moment. The Thunder lose last night to Devin Booker and the Suns on a last-second three-pointer. The Thunder, are now 30-6 and are 6-4 in their last 10. It's not what you want. The Suns somehow, by the way, are 21-14. Great job by Coach Ott and Devin Booker in Phoenix for what they've accomplished thus far this season. And don't look now, but Tyler Morales' Philadelphia 76ers have won 3 straight games, slammed my Knicks over the weekend at the Garden, and Joel Embiid is looking really good. We'll do more on the NBA later this week on You Better You Bet. But for now, let's close the show with all the bets. Kenny Henderson, please drop the dope-ass beat. All right, here's where we stand for tonight. And again, this is not like when we used to do the show right before games started. So the New York Knicks right now are 2.5-point road favorites at the Detroit Pistons. So the Pistons have gotten bet a little bit. Jalen Duren is out for Detroit. I like the Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to own the glass in this game. Knicks minus 2.5. I don't hate the Knicks as a money line piece as well. The Atlanta Hawks are 3.5-point dogs in Toronto. They just played in Toronto and got blown out. No Trae Young. I love Atlanta plus 3.5 in Toronto. The Suns are coming off a win against the Thunder. Great. I'll bet the Rockets against them tonight. I will lay 8 with Houston against Phoenix. Give me the Houston Rockets. And give me the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid's playing tonight, laying 11.5 against the walking wounded Denver Nuggets. I think the Sixers win that game by 15. And 2 thoughts in college basketball. USC lost by 30 to Michigan over the weekend. Michigan's ridiculous. USC now is an 11.5-point dog in Michigan State. Give me USC plus the points at Sparty. And then we have Ohio State hosting Nebraska. Ohio State a 2.5-point favorite. I'm leaning towards Ohio State. I don't know if I'll make that bet. I do like the Trojans plus 11.5. So the Knicks laying a short price at the Pistons. The Hawks plus 3.5 at Toronto. The Rockets laying 8 against Phoenix. The Sixers laying 11.5 against the Nuggets. And I will take the points with USC at Michigan State. I am off tomorrow because I am working Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Chris Mack has you covered on a Tuesday. I will see you all on a wonderful Football Wednesday. Black and Abdallah coming up next. Until we meet again, dear listener and dear viewer, I'm Nick Costos wishing you minimal sweats, winning bets, and the absolute very best of luck.
That was You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.